Awesome. Okay, so we are live. Welcome to today's webinar about marketing during a pandemic. My name is Gordon Frayne, and I'm the founder of Startup Sanctuary. And today I'm joined by marketing expert Jessica Nevins, who is going to be sharing her insights on the marketing industry in today's climate and talking all about what she's seeing successful brands doing. First of all, I think it's very interesting to look at the current landscape of how technology is enabling individuals and businesses to connect at a time like this when many people are restricted with travel and working environments, and the setup for people has changed a huge amount in how they conduct their day-to-day business. I think it's also interesting to see how people and brands are getting creative in how they're leveraging technology as well as social media to craft new ways of engaging customers and expanding their businesses. So just to give you a quick session overview of what we're going to actually look at during the webinar, we have a brief table of contents here. So first of all, we'll jump into a quick introduction for myself and Jessica immediately after this. Jessica will then take us through a new normal and looking at the landscape of how things have changed since the beginning of the pandemic. We'll then go through how connection is king and the importance of building really strong relationships for your business and how that is a key touch point for you and your ideal customer. And then we'll really dive into how you can be capitalizing on this and really take the opportunity that is there to be seized even at a time of a global pandemic. And finally, we'll open it up for any Q&A if anyone has any questions on the line or if anyone has anything they want to go through and ask. So first of all, who are we? I will allow ladies go first, and I will introduce Jessica Nevins as our resident marketing expert. But Jessica, please introduce yourself and tell us a bit about who you are and what you do.
Hi there, I'm Jessica Nevins, and I have over 20 years of marketing experience, digital, direct, in every variation I think you can think. From brand strategy all the way as granular and detailed as data strategy, as far as what makes people convert, how do you get the best results from your marketing. These are all things that I've been very passionate about, and I've formed a great solid career around. I've worked with companies anywhere from Fortune 50s all the way through to individual one-on-one entrepreneurs to help them to expand and launch their businesses, and also to create marketing initiatives that get them the conversion, that get them the profits, and help them to continue a life for their brand, a strong life for their brand. So that's really what I've been up to for maybe the last 2 decades. I think it's even longer, but yeah, it's been quite a while, and I love what I do.
Amazing. And we've had the pleasure of getting to know each other over the past couple of months, really, because in building out Startup Sanctuary, we're obviously creating and cultivating a community for entrepreneurs and creators. And in light of that, we've been onboarding instructors and getting involved with people who have areas of expertise in all business verticals. And having spoken with Jessica a number of times and collaborated with her with onboarding the Startup Sanctuary and hosting her material and getting involved, it's been great to get to know you and just understand where you've come from in terms of all of your experience. And I think you'll be able to shed some great insights with what we're about to go into. So yeah, marketing during a pandemic, the landscape has changed, but I think as you'll go into, Jessica, a lot of the fundamentals of relationship building is very much still there. And I think it often harkens back to building out solid relationships as you'll go into. And I'll hand over the floor to you to dive into the specifics, but I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Wonderful. Thank you. I am excited to talk about it. Well, we'll just dive right in right now. And basically piggybacking on what Gordon just said is that, yes, there are fundamentals in place that have always been in place, have always worked. And we're embracing a new normal right now. Everyone is. This isn't something that is just happening in an isolated area. This is something that's happening globally. So it affects a national brand, it affects regional brands, it affects global brands. It affects everyone. Everyone is rethinking how they're doing their marketing. Right now, I have several clients that are realizing the value of these marketing fundamentals that they kind of heard and thought, oh, those are buzzwords, but never really integrated. And now they're finding that there's a pressing need to integrate them in order to communicate with their audiences and to continue to get that conversion and continue to grow their profits. So the new normal, let's look at the numbers for a minute. As I already stated, the global pandemic has changed the way millions of people spend their day-to-day routines at home. So you have a captive audience, and it's reflected in the numbers, okay? Email revenues are up by 86%. Open rates, that means people are actually opening emails. I know that years ago, and even before the pandemic, people were saying, oh, email's dead. Let me tell you, email is not dead. Email is actually trending right now. So more and more brands are going to inboxes because people are actually opening emails. Open rates are up 21.8%. And why this is significant, let me just tell you really quickly. The average open rate in any industry, I mean, they fluctuate, but they're usually anywhere from 10% to 15%. So this is quite a jump. If you're looking from percentage points, this is quite a jump in activity, and it's very significant. And then you can look at, the revenue per recipient. I'm not going to go into detail here. You can see all these numbers on your screen, but you can see how significant these numbers are. Open rates are up. Click-through rates are up. Conversion rates are way up because people are actually taking the time to read the message. If the message is on point, then people stay and they continue to read and they continue to connect. And if it's very well done, then they'll pull out their credit card or they'll take the next step to opt in, whatever it is. But yes, we are seeing across the board, we're seeing this new normal, and brands that are doing it right are just astronomically expanding. So here's what you should be doing. Here is the marketing that we're seeing working. And when I say we, I'm saying for myself, my own business, and for my clients. I have had a dramatic increase in my own business. And Gordon and I were kind of talking about this before, how my business was doing well, but it skyrocketed because I was using these techniques, and now I'm using them with my clients, and now they're getting results. And so it's this really beautiful snowball effect. Now, with in-store shopping not returning, and I really want to drill this down and paint a picture for you. People are not going in-store to shop anymore. They're just not. They might if they have to do it for an essential need, but most of the time, if they can get it online, they're going to opt for online. They don't necessarily want to go out. They don't want to expose themselves, especially in areas where the infection rate is really high. Personally, I live in Southern California, so we've got a lot of people here and our infection rates are kind of crazy. So going out is not something I really want to do. In-store shopping is just not a thing for me anymore right now. And people are going online. So brands are providing innovative solutions now, the ones that are being successful. They're providing solutions paired with a high level of honesty and authenticity. They're being really authentic about the current climate and how they're applying those limitations in this new environment with complete transparency. They're being completely real with you in their communications and in their packaging. And this is what's performing. Just smoothing it over, glossing it over like it doesn't exist that's just getting crickets. That's just getting people that they just tune a deaf ear to it. So what are we getting at here? What I'm getting at is connection is king. And once again, I'm going to reiterate it because it's so important right now to understand what's not working. And I think this is creating a trend that is going to continue beyond the pandemic into this new normal. And people are going to remember this time, and they're going to expect the same standard of communications going forward. So what's done and over with? Salesy tactics, you know, real gimmicky types of things, or lots of like overly clickbaity types of subject lines or calls to action. And when I say clickbait, if you're not familiar with the term, what it means is something that's very sensationalized to the point that you just want someone to click on it. It doesn't necessarily mean that there's anything good about it. It's just so highly sensationalized. It's kind of like, you know, you just want, you want to grab the person's attention. You don't care how you grab it. So there really is no good intention behind it. So salesy tactics, communications that gloss over the situation. I talked about that just a little while ago. This is a time where everyone's in the same boat. And if you're not acknowledging that, it's a very slippery slope. It's a very dangerous situation because people will tune a deaf ear and say, well, they don't get it. So you never want to be in that place. The ostrich with its head in the sand and pretending like nothing's wrong just does not work anymore. And I predict that we are going to see this continue. And trying to copycat what another brand or person is doing, it doesn't translate. And you might question me saying that, and here's why. Is because you'll see a lot of brands that are very similar. And you'll think, well, that brand's copying that brand. And it's not necessarily a copycat. Because if you look at them at a deeper level, you'll understand that there are streams of communication that are very unique to them. And if you try and go out and copy the way some brand is doing something, and it's not unique to your organization, and it's not unique to your messaging, and it's not unique to what you want to put in the world, then it's not going to resonate. And there's a real danger there. So no copycatting. Copycatting is over and done with. What is working? Communication that has an underlying tone of reassurance and consideration. We want to make sure that whatever messaging we're putting out there has just a tone of intention behind it, and really getting clear that, you know, someone else might be going through something difficult. Someone might have lost someone to the pandemic. They might have lost a family member. I mean, these are things that, and their life might have changed completely. They might have had to move out of a city and into a suburb, and they're adjusting to that. I mean, there are so many different things. It's so multi-layered that it's just really important to understand and always infuse an underlying tone of reassurance and consideration. Like, you get it, you get what's going on, and you're considerate to what they're going through, because you don't know what they're going through, and you're not going to know, and that's okay. As I mentioned before, and I'm going to state it again because it is so important, the more you can embrace honesty, transparency, and authenticity in all of your communications, no matter if that's today, tomorrow, or 5 years from now, that is always a winner, always a winner. Those three things, honesty, transparency, authenticity, really they create a connection that is solid, that is like a foundation. The person feels they can stand on it. They feel that connection, and they learn to trust you. And when you have the trust of the customer, the consumer, the client, that will take you very, very far. Now, also another superpower is empathy. Using empathy and understanding where someone's at and weaving that into your communications, knowing and showing that you strive to understand what the consumer is going through, or your customer's going through, your client's going through. They feel heard, they feel seen, they feel understood. And that's an underlying sense of safety that they're probably not getting right now in the world. Because there's just so much uncertainty right now that people are really craving safety. And when you give them a safe space of empathy and understanding, it creates connection. So And I've said this for years to clients, to companies, to everyone that asks me about, you know, if there's one tip you can say about marketing and communications, what is it? And I say, speak to this audience as you would speak to a friend that you respect, a friend that you care about, and just open up in a way that conveys a message that they can really understand and take in and connect with. So that's why connection is king. And Gordon mentioned this earlier. It comes down to building a relationship. That's really what it all boils down to. So, and I always say this, with connection being the queen, relationship is, did I say queen or king? I'm getting mixed up. With connection being the king, relationship is the queen. So here's the challenge and then also the solution. The challenge, people are on their devices more than ever before. So how in the heck do you stand out, right? They're getting bombarded with messages. They're getting bombarded with ads. Whose emails do you open first? I want you to ask yourself that question right now. Think about it. You probably get bombarded with, you know, hundreds of emails a day, or maybe a smaller bunch, you know, 10s, 20s, 30s, 50 emails a day, let's say. Whose do you open first? Well, if you're in a working relationship, you open the hot emails first. If you translate that into a personal day-to-day, the emails that I personally open are the ones that are meeting a need, an immediate need. Or it's a vendor or a company that I already have a relationship with. For example, and this is funny because it's almost like an automatic response, and it can become that for someone. In my inbox, I will have just dozens and dozens of emails, and I'll think, well, I have no, and I can scan, and then I see, I have a Mercedes-Benz. So when I see communication come in from Mercedes-Benz, I click on it. I just automatically click on it because that's priority. It's like, oh, well, are they having a service special? Are they having new, you know, a sale on new cars? Maybe it's time for me to get a new car. Yeah, I'm thinking about a new car. And they're smart. See, they've targeted me because in their files, they say, oh, look at her car is this many years old. It's probably time for her to upgrade. So they are constantly in my inbox, and I'm constantly opening the email because I have a good relationship with them. So they do take priority over someone, like, say there's a sale going on for furniture at this one place, and it doesn't apply to me right now. I don't need a new table right now. So it's just going to be like an ignore. So if you have a relationship with that consumer, with that client, with that customer, and you build that relationship and you really focus on building the relationship, what it does is it leans you into the solution, which is that consistency will foster the relationship. The consumer learns to trust you. And as I mentioned before, trust is very, very, very valuable. It is probably the most valuable thing that you can earn from a customer or a consumer, and it is something to be treasured. I mean, it is very precious because it can be broken like that. So if you are consistent in your communications, if you're infusing the empathy, if you're being honest and transparent, and you're being authentic in your brand, this will build a trust. And then your communications will be welcomed in their inbox, or welcomed if you get retargeted in an ad on Facebook. It's like, oh, look, they're doing something new. Okay, I'm going to click on it. But otherwise, they're going to tune you out. So it's really important to build that relationship.
Awesome. And Jessica, I just want to jump in on a couple of the things that you've noted there, because I think, especially on the note of consistency and building that trust, it's something that we're experimenting with it at the moment ourselves. And I think a lot of it comes down to patience as well, because building that trust is something that takes time.
It does take time.
Setting up your marketing, whether it's your email nurture sequence, whether it is your content that's going out on a weekly basis. One thing that we've done is we've set up what we're calling a content carousel, and we've taken themes based on our company values. So we're building out themes based on our values, our core values, leveraging those as different themes for content on a weekly basis, and communicating those themes, which are part of our core value, through our content to the end user. And it's absolutely not a short-term game. It's something that we know is going to take time to build up, but the ability for us to go in and improve upon that content each week and every time that we go through those different themes is something that builds over time. And I think a lot of times when people are building their own business or their personal brand, it's probably the hardest part, is having the patience to consistently produce content and consistently build that relationship. So it's not something to be afraid of, but it's something to be ready to embrace, I think. And I think you summed it up quite nicely. On the other side as well, I think one of the things that we see working with different startups as well is the rate of innovation, let's say, and how technology has democratized the ability for people to create all different types of businesses, whether it's a marketing services agency, whether it is building an actual software product itself. Technology is this enabling force that's allowing people to do that. But exactly like you said, it still has to come back to the fundamentals of building the relationships with those initial customers and leveraging the communication and trust protocols for nurturing those relationships over time. Because no matter how much technology you have and shove in people's faces, there has to be a human element to the nature of the conversation and the nature of the relationship. And it's something that, again, it's not a quick fix overnight. It has to be earned and gained, and it's a never-ending pursuit, I think, for anyone who begins to build out their business and personal brand.
Yes, I agree with you 100%, Gordon. I just want to go back to what you were saying about being patient with the process. I've had several of my own businesses, and I was a partner in a tech startup years ago, and it's always been about patience when it comes to marketing. And it's not easy. It is not easy to be in that space where you really want to see the revenues coming in, and you're trying to be consistent with your content, and you're trying to get people to open the emails, you're trying to get people to look at the ads, and it can be really daunting at first, and it can be a little disappointing at first, depending. So if you're in that space, just give it more time. Just give it more time and continue to be consistent. Don't really focus on, I'm not getting the result yet. Know that the result will come if you are building that foundation. It's just people don't trust immediately. I mean, I was joking around with one of my clients the other day about a recommendation, and they were wanting to speed up the process of how they were in their communication sequence. And I said, okay, well, I want you to think of it this way. Like, we're building a relationship here. So if we speed that up and we send out that particular communication on the second drop, then that's kind of the equivalent of going on a second date and someone proposing marriage to you. It's like that quick. And people are like, wait, what? It doesn't resonate well. And that I'm sure it has worked out in rare occasions, but generally speaking, it doesn't. Generally speaking, it's like, well, wait, what's going on here? I barely know you. So if you're making a big ask at the beginning of your communication stream and you don't have that solid relationship, it's going to fall flat. And please don't get discouraged by that. Just know that it's more about stacking the content and showing your true colors. Like, I love, Gordon, how you were talking about how you're really communicating your values. That is so important as a brand, to communicate, to show who you are. And I think it, just like you do in a relationship, you have to open up. You have to open up and show that person who you really are. You have to show your true colors. When you do that, it creates a type of relationship where they learn to trust who you are. And as that trust builds, then it opens up the relationship to explore new levels and to take new actions. And in the case of marketing, what it does is it explores the possibility to create a relationship that goes into this provider, a product being acquired, or, you know, something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I think it's something that we did from the beginning with trying to set core values. And just to go back to this point again, but I think it's a worthwhile exercise for anyone to do, to just think about those core fundamentals that communicate your brand the best. And it can come back to the founders oftentimes, but it can also encompass just the culture of the particular business or company, and thinking of the themes that you want to communicate, and then building out your content plan that's going to be the touch point with your end user on the basis of that. So I think that's kind of it's kind of a natural segue into what we're going to look at next, which is how can people capitalize on the current trends, I guess, that are happening with the pandemic, but really holding true to those kind of core fundamentals that we've gone through. And you've mentioned that so many of the most successful brands are leveraging a lot of these strategies that we've spoken about. And for me, I love the example you gave of your inbox and just trying to filter some of the stuff that's coming through on a daily basis, because there's so much quote unquote noise that comes through people's inboxes and with social media as well. And
yes,
I think even for me, I've subscribed to so many different email campaigns, let's say, that just bombard me with messages on a daily basis. And after 3 days, I'm like, okay, I don't want to see this anymore, and I unsubscribe. So there's definitely, I think, a need to strike a balance with communicating, but doing it in a way that's going to help the person understand your brand at a deeper level, but also not make it too spammy, like you alluded to. So I think you've personally used a lot of these strategies over the years, and I think it would be great for people to like understand that a bit better. So I know you've gone through a couple of examples, but do you have maybe another example you could share with us? Or leading on from that, I mean, people can check out the courses and the material that you have on Startup Sanctuary on the platform as well. But I'd love to know even what you see as kind of your greatest examples, and how that ties into some of the courses that you've produced as well.
Well, I think there are two things that I can give examples of here. One of them, I was the lead point person, lead point strategist on TurboTax, which is a very big company here in the States. I was tasked with developing the overall communication strategy, brand strategy, and the creative strategy for their campaign. This was back in 2007, 2008. And it was very multi-tiered as far as what needed to happen and what the ask was. So I came up with the strategy. It was a risky strategy, but I decided to go with it. The client signed off on it, and so we ran with it. And they had projected, I think, they wanted to make $1 million on that particular campaign. Okay, and they had several different campaigns running. This campaign in particular was an integrated campaign that would be running for, I think it was 2 weeks. And then based on those findings, we would shape the other campaigns. But this particular campaign was about a 2-week run. They wanted $1 million in profits. They had all these different other KPIs set in place. So I thought, okay, we can do this. We can hit that. I thought it might be a little aggressive, but once we got deeper into it, it started to move, and I started to see how things were working. I said, okay, we can hit that. We should probably come in a little higher than that, and that'll be fine. We actually blew the campaign out of the water. They ended up with $3 million in profits on that campaign alone. And from there, we used those findings to shape the other campaigns. So I think all of it coming together was probably close to $15 million in profits. And that was based on one overarching strategy that boiled down into several other small strategies. And what it really came down to was consistency of the message throughout all the different platforms. So we're communicating those same messages through social, through email, through direct mail. So as an integrated campaign. So we had direct mail and we had digital on it. And all of those working together, it was very much a perfect storm. It was not an easy execution for my team, but we did get it done. But if you stick with the process like we did, and sometimes if you take calculated risks, like the risk that I took in forming that strategy was a calculated risk. I'm not saying to just like jump off the cliff without looking. No, jump off the cliff, yes, but make sure, that you know how long it's going to take for you to get down to the bottom, and that you have a plan in place to handle the bottom, which is what you do, is that's how you plan it out. And then you just be patient. You be patient with the results. And even when the results do not look good, keep going. Just keep going. Because at the beginning, like the open rates weren't good, the click-through rates weren't where we wanted them to be, but that changed in a matter of days. So it can change, marketing at the speed of digital is a totally different marketing world. I mean, you can get results pretty quickly and you can pivot from there. So I think the message there is just to be really nimble, and to be able to pivot quickly, and to be able to trust your gut on your messaging and know that, okay, I stand behind this messaging, and this is on brand. This communicates the values. It's building a relationship. We might not be seeing those results yet. Let's keep going. Let's get to the end. And if at the end it's still not good, we can go back and do some findings. But if it misses the mark, then we can figure out why or why not. So I think that that's a really important thing to do, is just to give yourself and your team a space of grace when you're implementing these communications, and when you're getting, an initiative launched, or you're getting brand recognition. Brand recognition sometimes can take a long time. I mean, these classic brands, I've also worked on Coca-Cola as well. Coca-Cola has a very long and rich history, but it wasn't always like that. They can, everyone knows who Coca-Cola is. Like you walk down the street and you see, someone drinking it, you automatically know who they are. It's intrinsic to you. You understand their values. You know what they're about. You have a certain expectation when it comes to them. But that, you're looking at over, I think it's like 200, is it 200 years? No. It's 100 and maybe 150 years. Don't quote me on this because I didn't do research. I don't know the exact number, but over 100 years of solid brand consistency. So that shows you right there how far consistency can go. And it can do that in your messaging too.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think you spoke to just the fact about being able to stay agile and nimble. And the other word you mentioned, I think, was being able to pivot. And I think that's a crucial component for any startup business and anyone who's just trying to build out their offering. And it harkens back to the fact that you don't need to have everything perfect from the get-go, and allowing yourself the grace to be able to pivot is I think very important as well. But there's always opportunity there for you to pivot and change your
yes.
idea and change it slightly. And I think some examples here, just from looking back to 2008, 2009 period. And as we know, this was kind of a time when there was a financial crisis and a lot of that going on in the world. But in spite of that, some of the largest companies, and technology companies in particular, maybe were birthed out of that period. So the likes of WhatsApp, Uber, Venmo, Groupon, and Slack here are all examples of companies that were started during that time and have obviously gone on to be multi-billion-dollar companies at this point. So again, I think it really just kind of comes full circle for what we've been trying to get at, in that there is so much opportunity here within this market to leverage marketing and set up the correct fundamentals from a communication perspective, and to really build out your brand or your personal business or your personal offering. And for me personally, I think it's a great time for people to do that, in terms of being able to say that they took this opportunity. Like if they were to say a year or two down the line, being able to look back at this time and say, wow, I really took that opportunity to build my business or to build my personal brand in spite of everything that might have been going on around them or in the world. I think it would be very cool for a lot of people to be able to do that. And I think that will be the case for a lot of businesses and a lot of people. And I think in order to do that, I think they need to embrace the opportunity, and also have the resources and everything available to them to do that and to take the first steps.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I mean, this is an incredible time of opportunity. And, as I mentioned earlier, my own personal business and the businesses that I'm working with right now have seen such tremendous growth in such a short amount of time. I mean, it's skyrocketed in so many ways. And I was speaking with my brother earlier today, who also, the company he works for has just experienced massive growth during this time. And there are businesses that are thriving right now, and your business could be one of them. And it's more about, keeping your focus more on what you want to create, and not to look at the external so much, but keep your focus on what you want to create and what value you want to contribute to the world, because the world needs it right now. I think more than ever, this is an amazing time for opportunity.
Absolutely. Yeah. So just to give a quick overview for anyone who's watching this again, is the fact that we're trying to curate all of the resources that we can at Startup Sanctuary to put that on a plate for people. So when they want to start their business, or they want to start their personal brand or their project, they can get all that information in one place. And we've already got people building businesses. We've got over 70 entrepreneurs in the community building different projects and businesses. And we're always looking for new people to join and just kickstart something that they're passionate about. And if anyone is interested, I mean, they can check out Startup Sanctuary. And of course, Jessica's courses are on there. But Jessica, I do also want to ask you, like, where can people find out more about you, and how can they do that as well,
Well, I do have some free tools for your community, and they are in my instructor profile, and we're going to list them down below. I have what's called the 20 highly converting subject lines. It's just a quick PDF that walks you through how to set up a subject line and gives you some examples. And then I also have what I call the EPIC content calendar. And EPIC is a word in itself, right? But I see it as an acronym that stands for Express Powerful Intentional Connection or Communication. I mean, the C can morph into either one, but really it's more about being intentional about your communications. And that really what motivated me to create that calendar, because you can actually write down and track what kind of communications you're putting out there, which makes it really great a few months down the road when you can look back and say, oh, wow, like, look at the impact we've made. You can also look at it from the standpoint, and this is what I personally used it for, is, there are times where you produce amazing volumes of messages. I mean, it can be great. And then there are other times where you're just like, I don't even know what to say. And I feel like I've said it all and nothing's coming to me. And I use those moments as repurpose moments. But without my content calendar, it was really difficult to figure out if I had already said that. So if I go back a few months ago and say, that's how I handled that subject matter, oh, now I have a fresh spin on it that I can share now. So I used it, and I've been using it for over a decade. So then I thought, a friend of mine said, why don't you make that into a tool that people can use? And I thought, oh, well, that's a great idea. Like, I never thought of that. Other people can use that to build up their brands, to track their communications, and to get really solid on that. So I have those available. And you can find me here on this, in this community. And also, my website right now is a little bit of a hot mess. uh, but you can find me there at jessicanevins.com as well.
Amazing. Yeah. I love the point you made about repurposing your content as well, because I mean, it's great building out your content calendar, but there is, I don't know, I don't want to say a finite amount of things, but there's going to be a finite amount of themes that your business communicates. And I think
yes,
being able to tweak and put new spins on certain ideas is a skill in and of itself. And I think it's great to be able to have tools that can enable people to do that. So yeah, people can definitely check it out, and they can also check out your site at jessicanevins.com. And once again, Jessica, thank you very much for joining us and for taking us through that journey of marketing during a pandemic.
Sure. It's been my pleasure, Gordon. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. Okay. Thank you very much.